What's going on, everybody? Gunnar here, and today I'm going to show you guys how to tie a Bob Popovics Bucktail Deceiver swimbait style. Check it out. So what we have right here is a Bob Popovics Bucktail Deceiver rigged swimbait style on the newly released GB Predator Swimbait hook, and this one is the 4-aught. Now this thing is disgusting. 6-inch bucktail deceiver, perfectly tapered, extended body tying that moves out of the way, hook point up, weightless, and the thing suspends. It's crazy cool. So this is what I want to show you guys how to tie today. Really simple fly recipe and design. All you basically need is bucktail. You want multiple bucktails. We'll get into that in a second, but bucktail. Now, if you have questions about this hook, you can check out this video. It's a full intro to the hook, the design, all of the good stuff you need to know. If you guys want to see me tie on the 2-aught, I have a video here, and the 2-aught has some nuance to the rigging, and it introduces all of the swimbait rigs, and that's what I want to showcase real quick is the 4-aught swimbait rig. Now I like to do two options. The first is just like the 2-aught. You're going to use a mono straight, which if you need to learn how to make these, I got a video for that as well, but you need one mono straight to make it. That's it. Now if you're going to do the simple version of the 4-aught, you just use 2 pieces of mono. And basically this is what's going on. I'll grab a bare hook here. But this has a lot of rear hook weight, and that rear hook weight isn't dressed. So when you stack your fly up here and you tie it weightless, that's one of the caveats here, because if you nose weight it, lead eyes or something, you can balance it back out. But if you're going to tie it weightless, a lot of times that hook's going to sag heavy in the back. Now what's really cool is when you take a shank and you connect it with a stiff piece of mono, 28,000 mono, the lift from the material stacked on that shank, they push up on the mono, and that mono stiffness pushes down on the front shaft and it levels out the hook. Now for the 4-aught, because it's heavier wire, use 2 pieces of mono. That way you have more stiffness and you have more leverage over that hook to drop it back. Now the second option, which I think is cooler, and that's what I want to showcase today, it has an accessory loop in the back, and it has a stopper bead on the hook. Now that stopper bead allows all the lift from the shank, all the materials on that, to pull up and support the rear weight of that hook. Becomes extremely important in the 6-aught rigs, but it's wicked cool on the 4-aught. Now this bead right here fluoresces. Check this out. It fluoresces like crazy. Really nice hot spot to have on that hook bend, so that fish are striking that in the right spot and getting that in their mouth. And what that bead is it's called a UV Glow Soft Bead from Owner, size 3. And so that's the rigging that I want to show you guys how today with the Bucktail Deceiver. You can use the loop in the back to attach things like wiggle tails. I'll show you guys an example here. This is a wiggle tail. This is a wiggle tail weightless bulkhead. Really wicked cool. So you just loop to loop a fast snatch attachment to that loop in the back. The other option that you can do is you can make little flash tail dressings, and I'll show you this one real quick here. You just twist that on, and now I have a flash tail dressing through that loop, and I can change the color of it, silver, gold. I can change the length, right? So you're building basically a modular style fly that you can customize, and you're using that stopper bead and pressure from the mono to support the rear weight of the hook to get a suspending weightless fly. So let's jump in here and I'll show you guys how to tie a Bucktail Deceiver swimbait style. Now I already took the time to get a 4-aught rigged with a rattle. I showcase how to do this in the 2-aught video, but I just have mono, one piece of mono stacked on the side, another stacked on this side, and it creates a nice rectangular flat base so that your rattle doesn't roll when you tie it in, and it's a 4mm glass rattle. And what's really cool about that is it's on the inside of the hook wire, so it doesn't catch on vegetation, it doesn't hit rocks. It protects the rattle so that the only thing that's going to break that is your casting, if you throw it at something and hit a rock or something like that, but also a fish. So if they break it, it's because they earned it, and it keeps your rattles nice and safe. So I already got that rigged. So I have in the vise a 35mm articulated shank from Flymen. You can also build your own shanks and do fun stuff like that. And what I'm going to come in with is a mono straight. It's just a straight piece of mono. This is 28,000 inch. Now I'm going to tie this fly, and just about all of them, with what is this, 8,000 inch, I think, 2mm diameter Weedless monofilament thread. And the reason why is because when you tie with the mono thread and you tie with the mono straight and you use Zap-A-Gap or any CA plus glue, the two become plastic welded and it makes a crazy durable, ridiculously durable system. So that's why I'm going to be using that, and it's perfect for bucktail work. 8/1000 of an inch diameter mono is phenomenal for doing bucktail work. So anyway, I'm going to come in with my straight here. I'm going to take 2 glass beads. Now ideally the beads would friction fit, meaning they'd be tight to the mono. These beads are just a hair big. I'm pretty sure these are glass beads, Tyers glass beads in a size large. It's close, they're close, but they're not perfect. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to take that loop off the back here, and I'm going to get that extension to fit perfectly on that R-bend and make sure I like the length. So what I'm going to do here is you just come in with an empty 4/0. Now when you rig this onto your hook, you want one bead really close to that shank. Otherwise, if you look at that, that mono has a big gap in it and it'll slide around your UV glow bead. So you have that right back there, and then you use the other bead to put pressure against that bead, just like that. That's how that's going to be rigged. Now the distance of that loop, you can modify it. If you were to tie a bucktail deceiver like this, and I have an accessory loop in the back, that's perfect for tying flash tails. Being able to change my flash tail and change the length of my flash tail right there. But if you come and you put a wiggle tail right there, all this bucktail is going to impede the action of the wiggle tail and stop it from wiggling. So if you look at the wiggle tail version, I have a much shorter bucktail wing, right? It's just nice and short so that it doesn't impede the action of that wiggle tail. So if you're going to do this for wiggle tails, you can make it longer or shorter or change the length of your wing. I'm going to do this one for flash tails. So I'm going to back off just a touch. I'm going to draw that in. Recinch that down. Come in with my 4/0 here and say, I like that. That fits absolutely perfectly. I'm going to be able to put the hook point right through there, have a nice hard loop in the back that I can attach fast snatches to, and it's going to span that whole gap. So that's going to be perfect. Then I'm just going to lock that in place with my mono thread. Come in here, drop these guys to the bottom. Get those tied in. Now you're going to come in with one more piece. This again is just a mono straight, 28/1000 of an inch mono straight, and I'm going to attach that right to the top of that hook shank and run it clean out the hook eye. And you can see it just runs out perfectly level, and that's going to be your attachment to your hook. Then I'm going to come in with my CA plus Zap-A-Gap. I'm going to weld all of that together. Take away some of that excess, and then I'm going to shorten that just a tad. Now when I shorten it, I have a little bit of waste here. You can see that. Save that waste, because that's what I use to stack my little rectangular box onto my hooks so that my rattles don't roll. So always save that waste because they're useful to have around. So now we're going to come in and we're going to stack a bucktail deceiver. So that doesn't take a lot of time. To me, it's kind of like rigging, you know, the stinger hook on a swing fly, or it's like articulating a hook, or it's like kind of tying on shanks or a game changer or anything modular. It's just part of the tying process. But it doesn't take that much time, and now I have a 35mm shank and about 20mm of shank to fully dress a bucktail deceiver. And that's crazy useful for being able to create taper, space between the bucktail stacks so that water can get in and move that, being able to do things like hollow ties or bulkhead ties. Like, it's crazy cool. So when you come in here to do your bucktail deceiver, I like to do this with at least 2 different length tails, and then we're also going to change the color combo. So I have 3 tails. I have a fairly long tail. This isn't like the craziest premium tail you can get, but it is a high quality tail. That's what I'm going to use for doing my nice long, sparse, limp, tail, and you want that tail to be fairly soft for that length, right? I got like a 5-inch tail on this thing, and then I got about an inch up front. Then you're going to come in with like a medium length tail, and you're going to be able to build the taper between the shank and your hook shank. And what you want with any bucktail deceiver is if you flare all this, you should be able to have like the thickest section of the fly right in the third mark, and then nothing but bucktail tips all the way to the tail. Nothing but tips, because it's the tips that move. And so you build this really elegant silhouetted fly with crazy good movement that's not over accentuated, that doesn't foul. Bucktail's the king. So we're going to come in with a long tail, and then the only other thing you need to tie this fly is just some flash, whatever flash you like. This is 1/100th of an inch opal flashaboo, and that's going to be that. So I'm going to come in with a sparse tail stack of bucktail here, nice and long, and just like with any fly, we're going to do it sparsest in the tail, get denser as we get up to the head. I preened out the little waist fibers, cut it nice and vertical. Come in with your mono, put a soft turn on top of that, 3 turns, and now I can use my fingers and I can just shove that around the hook. And all I'm doing, I can even let go of my bobbin. I'm just pushing on it, and every time you pinch it, the bucktail runs away from that pressure, and so I can just keep pinching it and pinching it and pinching it until it's perfectly distributed. Really cinch that down with some pressure, lock in those butts, come up half hitch, and then I'm going to take 4 or 5 strands here of just opal flash. I'm going to put a little bit of taper into it, so I'm just going to pull them to different lengths. Drape that around my bobbin, stack it right on top. Then you can take your fingernail, shove it into the flash, get it to move around a little bit so it's not all in one spot. Now as I wrap backwards, I'm going to pull out some thread and wrap down with some nice light pressure to really collapse that bucktail so that it's nice slick back and silhouetted. Then I'm going to move up and put some distance on here to create taper. Now I've welded all that together with some super glue, and I'm going to come in with another stack here. This stack's going to be 5–10% thicker. I'm going to use about the same length, maybe a wee bit shorter but not super short, and we're getting our difference in length, our taper, by progressing up that hook shank right about there. Again, I cleaned out the butts, gave a nice perfectly clean vertical cut to that. Catch it with 3 loose wraps, smash that down with your thumbnail, and then just pinch, 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 pinch. And now I can support that shank eye, pull straight down, and get a perfect 360-degree distribution of bucktail. Lock in those butts, come up here and tie in just a few more strands of flash. Drape that around my bobbin, pin it right to the top, a few wraps. That moved around nicely, so I'm not going to shove my thumb into it. Lock it in place, and then I can whip finish. So this makes for a really easy body extension for that hook. Just ridiculously easy. And then I'm going to weld all that together. Now we're going to be done with that long tail, and that right there is what you have. That's your tail to your bucktail deceiver. Now I'm going to come in with my 4/0 here, make sure it's locked into place. I'm going to get my thread started on that shank. And now I'm going to come in with that glow bead, and you don't need the glow bead. You can come in and you can tie a thread bump and just super glue it and use tying thread. You can come in and put a little dubbing ball in there, super glue it. You can come in, make a little UV resin bump and cure it in place. But these glow beads are super fluorescent. They create a nice accent. They're replaceable if they get damaged or break or anything, which I haven't ever had happen, but they're replaceable. And all you do is slide that down your hook bend until it's in line, so that's going to hold all that material, and it's going to allow you to put pressure up on that bend and support the hook. So now when you come in with this extended body, you have those 2 glass beads, and all you have to do is separate the beads and then put that gap that's in between the beads right over that. Clean out some of that bucktail, and because your tail is stacked more or less in the round, it doesn't matter if there's any line twist or anything like that, and just get that guy connected. And when you get to the back, you just want to make sure that it's perfectly on top and in the center. That's all you really need to do. You can come and cut that nice and short. You don't need a lot of room because there's really no pressure on it. Fish aren't going to come and pull that out. And when you plastic weld this with the super glue, it is literally, it's virtually indestructible. It's crazy how indestructible that is. Now, if you've never tied with bucktail before, I'm going to try to be a little bit more thorough with my instruction. But also, it tends to flare a lot and it's a little crazy while you're tying it in. And what we're going to do is you get it wet and you hang dry it, and this is the silhouette it'll have in the water, and it's picture perfect. So you got to trust the tying a little bit and have some faith here that it's going to come together. So I'm going to come in with a slightly shorter tail and a slightly higher density, right? I'm going to increase the density as I move forward. I'm shortening the tail so that my tips and my fibers are all tapering together. I'm going to clean out those butts, flick out the shorter hairs that I don't need. I'm going to come and lay that in, and you can see just how those are a little bit shorter, you know, it's medium, long, extra long. Can pack those bases against my hand to even up the butts. Give a nice, perfectly clean vertical cut. Loose thread right over top. 3 turns. Thumbnail right on top, and then you just pinch and pinch and pinch. Make sure that it's nice and even. Support that hook eye. Straight pull down. Pull out a few hairs there. And then lock those butts down. You can always wrap back into that hair and re-cinch here. Make sure it's truly locked in place. And that's not going anywhere. Now, for the last time, I'm going to come in with just a little bit of flash. You don't need to do this. I'm going to cut it a little bit shorter. Really, those first 2 stacks are kind of the most important for just getting some flash in the fly. If you're fishing for pike or muskie or maybe some unpressured fisheries, you can put a lot of flash in them, make them really flashy, basically flashaboo flies with bucktail for support. But I also like to just lightly dress them. I think it's pretty natural. Weld that all in place. Now I'm going to come in with that same bucktail, again fairly dense, denser than the tail stacks were. This time I'm going to tie it a hair shorter so that we're just continuing to improve our taper, and right now I'm really building some bulk into that shoulder section, into that mid body. Nice loose wraps. Get that sucker moved around the hook. Support that hook eye and pull her down. Then lash that sucker in place. And now we're going to start adding some contrast. Now what I'm going to do is I really like this color combo for my tanned water. But I have really tannic dark water, and fishing these kind of white with neutral and these kind of root beer gingery colors are phenomenal. So this is just a ginger dyed tail, and you don't want the hair to really be super long. You want to create kind of a nice shorter head area. So this first stack might be a little bit long just to get some of the tone back into the fly, and then the front stack will be nice and short. So I'm going to come in with a fairly dense little collar here. Clean out those butts. This first one might be a little bit long just so the color bleeds well. Cut that nice and short. Fan that around. pinch and pinch, support the hook eye. It's just kind of like, I don't know, spinning deer here. It's very, very similar. And you can see how much closer together these front stacks are to really building a nice large profile fly with nothing more than bucktail stacks. This is classic Bucktail Deceiver here. Now I'm going to come in with some shorter hairs. I'm going to have to preen them off the bucktail and find some good shorter hairs on here. If you can hear some banging, my neighbors are putting a new garage in. Cut that nice and short right up here at the hook eye. Loose turn, loose turn, loose turn. Look at that. Absolutely picture perfect. Support that, flare that down, and trap all that. That is a wicked simple Swimbait Bucktail Deceiver. Now I started playing with the little dressing at the nose here, and all it is pheasant rump, and it gives a nice kind of dark tone to the head, but the pheasant rump also has a little bit of sheen to it, and it reflects a little bit of light that looks really good in the water. So I'm going to show you guys how to do that real quick. So all you need is a pheasant skin or a little rump patch, and this is not necessary to the pattern. I just think it looks nice. So you just have a rump patch. You're going to want to use basically the longest ones you can find relative onto that patch. They're going to be all the way at the tip right up here. You can see most of mine are missing. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to take these two feathers. I'm going to find where the shaft gets a little bit soft, so if you flick it, you'll see right where it flexes. I'm going to cut that. I'm going to clean that out. I'm going to tie both in at the same time and just kind of get them on there, because we're right up here at the hook eye. Coming with some hackle pliers. The only trick to this is you got to try to find both stems. Once you get them both, you're just going to walk that. Make sure it's facing concave back so that the feathers lay down right. And you're just going to walk that around that hook. I like to use two feathers just so it's nice and thick. Get some proper contrast. Doing it at the same time instead of doing one feather at a time just helps so you don't crowd the hook eye. And then you can find the tips, break the tips out, preen those back, and then take some light thread pressure and basically build up a thread head that's going to control those fibers. And now you have a nice little pheasant head on your Bucktail Deceiver. So while that super glue is drying right there at the head, and before we get this guy in the tank and I show you guys how it swims, I'm going to show you just how to dress basically a little flash tail. So you need something called a fast snatch attachment. It's just a little, basically it's a shank or a wire thing with a little open loop in the back that you can thread and loop around that mono. Now I like to take this eye with my pliers, just smash it closed so that I have more room for tying. You put the loop into your vise, get your thread started, and then I can come in with basically flash, whatever color flash I want. I'm just going to use the opal because I have it out. And this is like I love fishing flash tails for pike. And I'm going to make that a little shorter. And then I'm going to put finger taper into it. So they're all different lengths. Now I can simply take that, basically catch that on that shank, kind of mash it around. Doesn't really matter how it moves on there. I can take all those forward pointing fibers, grab those guys, pull everything back. I basically now have everything tied in twice, and I have a nice little flash tail. We'll finish that guy. And you could do that with silver, gold, chartreuse. You can come up with different color combos. Black, you could do it a little stealth version. You could put hackles on there. You can really dress it however you want. And then you can interchange that and put that on that fly based on your conditions. Hit that with some super glue. Now I got that hard loop in the back. I'm going to take that one. And just like that, I've now added a flash tail to my bucktail deceiver for fishing esox. And that's crazy sexy back there. Look at that. That's sweet. So we're going to put this guy in the swim tank and I'll show you guys how it rides. Things to look for. Because all that bucktail is stacked in line with our shank, I have all this wire down below keeling that fly. I have the rattles keeling the fly. Even on the inside of the wire, they're keeling the fly. So this thing is going to ride perfectly true, swim true. You get it in crazy current, you're going to get lovely belly wobble, but it's never going to spin or roll or flip. You'll see when I turn the tank off and flick it in, it's going to hit the water and orient itself very quickly. So it's always going to ride hook point up the moment it hits the water, so you don't have to worry about that riding upside down for a period of time and potentially snagging. It's always going to be hook up. You're going to see in the water how that wing collapses and kind of just covers that point perfectly for veg, but you can also see that the bucktail really has no stiffness to it for preventing fish hookups whatsoever. And then the extended body rig with that little glow bead in there is going to lift the back of the hook and allow this to more or less ride level. Now in the tank, my mono, my connection rides above it, so in the top layer you'll see it kind of hover like that. That's because of the way that my line is pulling on it. But when we turn the motor off, it'll drop nice and level and fish. That's how it would fish in the water. So let's hit the tank. So here she is in the top of the tank. Let me get that hair in there, make sure there's no hair in the head. And I need a rag for my hands. How crazy cool is that? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that stopper bead and I'm going to slide it down a little bit more. There we go. Look at that. Look at that. That is so crazy cool. That is so freaking crazy cool. Bucktail Deceiver swim bait. That's unbelievable. Alright. See when I flick this guy in there. The moment she hits the water, it's going to right itself every single time. You can see that thing drop just slightly head first, which is opposed to riding heavy in the rear. Look at that thing. It's so sweet. Oh, that's sick. As far as a beginner pike fly, the tying on this is super easy, and I think the results are unbelievable. To have a weedless flash tail bucktail deceiver that is unbelievably castable. You could fish this thing down to a 6-weight probably and be able to cast it really efficiently. That's crazy cool. Just crazy. Alright, so something I do with all my bucktail flies is I get them wet and then you hang dry it. So you're going to go and you're going to hang this guy up just like that. Just like that. And you'll see that silhouette relax and relax and relax, and you'll end up with a perfectly tapered little baitfish profile for your pictures. So that's what you're looking for, to hang dry it. I just let that thing hang dry on a magnet. Holds its eye perfectly in place. So thanks for watching. Hopefully you guys dig that. Check out the new hooks. Check out the Swimbait Rigs. Watch the 2-aught. Hope you enjoyed the 4-aught. Stay tuned for the 6-aught. Get tying. Fish some cover with confidence. I don't know what else to say. I'm excited. Thanks for watching.